Just moments ago, thermal readings from Campi Flegrei spiked to levels that have scientists scrambling for explanations. Underground heat is no longer staying underground. It's forcing its way upward with such ferocity that homes are transforming into something unrecognizable. Their walls encrusted with volcanic minerals, their floors radiating temperatures that make them impossible to walk on barefoot. Over 500,000 people are living directly on top of this hidden supervolcano, and what experts are now discovering has shattered every assumption about how safe this region actually is. If the official danger assessments were fundamentally wrong, what's really churning beneath these streets right now? And if the world's best volcanologists can't figure out how to stop it, what happens to the families waking up each morning wondering if today is the day everything changes? This isn't a distant threat brewing in some remote corner of the planet. This is a crisis unfolding in real time beneath one of Europe's most densely populated regions, and the warning signs are no longer subtle. Campi Flegrei sprawls across 8 miles of Italian landscape, its true extent camouflaged beneath the chaos of modern life west of Naples. This isn't the stereotypical volcano that announces itself with a towering cone and smoke signals visible for miles. Instead, the caldera spreads invisibly under residential neighborhoods, elementary schools, ancient archaeological sites, and crowded harbors. Its rim barely registers to anyone except the geologists who've spent careers mapping its boundaries. More than 500,000 people live directly above this volcanic colossus, packed into what emergency planners grimly call the red zone. Beyond that immediate danger area, over 6 million residents of Greater Naples go about their daily routines, commuting to work, running errands, raising children, all within striking distance of its destructive potential. The caldera's birth dates back 15,000 years to an eruption so catastrophically violent it drained the underground magma chamber completely, leaving the ground above with no support structure. The Earth collapsed inward, creating a crater wider than Manhattan, with its southern boundary now submerged beneath the Bay of Pozzuoli. Over millennia, the landscape gradually filled in with human development towns and agricultural fields, highways and railways, until the original volcanic scar nearly vanished beneath layers of civilization. But the volcano never went quiet. Since that ancient collapse, at least 70 separate eruptions have punched through the surface, each one creating new vents, lava domes, or steaming fields, sometimes with almost no advance warning. For most residents, the volcanic threat remains practically invisible. Streets wind through gentle hillsides with only occasional clues. Patches of scorched vegetation, the faint sulfuric stench hanging in the air, or sudden bursts of steam escaping from storm drains, hinting at the forces churning below. Children play soccer on fields, sitting atop buried craters. Apartment towers rise where hot springs once bubbled to the surface. Daily life proceeds as though the ground itself were perfectly ordinary, even as scientists meticulously track every tremor and gas release happening beneath people's feet. Yet the danger is anything but ordinary. The caldera's footprint doesn't just cover the city of Pozzuoli, it stretches deep into Naples itself, intersecting with the daily existence of millions. The population density here ranks among the highest of any volcanic hazard zone on the planet. Emergency authorities have mapped evacuation routes and conducted practice drills. But the brutal reality is clear. The sheer number of people, the tangled road networks, and the volcano's fundamental unpredictability make rapid escape nearly impossible. 15,000 years ago, an explosion unlike anything in recorded history tore open the landscape west of Naples. The Campi Flegrei eruption emptied so much magma from beneath the surface that the earth above simply caved inward, swallowing forests, rivers, and ancient settlements in the collapse. What remained wasn't a dramatic mountain peak, but a sunken expanse 8 miles wide, ringed by low hills and partially bordered by the Mediterranean. This is the caldera, a permanent scar from a volcanic event powerful enough to alter Europe's climate. Scientists classify that ancient eruption as VEI 7, one of the largest in continental history. Ash from the blast blanketed the entire Mediterranean region, and the ground itself dropped hundreds of feet, creating a crater that would shape the region's destiny forever. But the destruction didn't end with that collapse. Campi Flegrei has never been truly dormant. Over the millennia, at least 70 additional eruptions have pierced through the caldera floor, each one leaving behind fresh craters, new domes, and steaming fields. The most recent eruption in 1538 built the hill called Monte Nuovo in just a few terrifying days, an entire landscape feature rising from farmland within sight of panicked villagers. Parish records from that year describe darkness at noon, choking ash clouds, and ground shaking so violently that homes split open along their foundations. For weeks afterward, the air remained thick with sulfur, and crops failed across southern Italy. Even centuries after the last eruption, the landscape refuses to settle. The caldera floor rises and falls in slow, powerful pulses, a phenomenon scientists call bradyism, sometimes lifting the ground by meters in just a few months before sinking back down. These movements have destroyed roadways, warped buildings beyond repair, and forced entire neighborhoods to evacuate, only for residents to return when the immediate crisis seemed to pass. Eruptions at Campi Flegrei have taken wildly different forms. Some were explosive, launching ash and pumice high into the atmosphere. Others were quieter but equally deadly, featuring boiling mud, violent steam jets, and rivers of superheated gas. The caldera operates like a massive pressure cooker, its fractured floor riddled with weaknesses where heat and gas can escape. Each new vent or dome serves as a reminder that the system beneath remains restless. At the heart of Campi Flegrei, the Solfatara Picciarelli vent has become ground zero for a new and impossible-to-ignore threat. In the past, steam rising from these fields was merely a curiosity, something tourists photographed, something locals dismissed with a shrug. But in the last 2 years, the measurements have changed beyond anything in modern monitoring history. Automated sensors at Picciarelli now register vent temperatures as high as 128 degrees Celsius, the highest ever recorded. By comparison, just a decade ago, readings hovered closer to 110 degrees. The change isn't just in temperature, but in the violence of its arrival. Carbon dioxide emissions from this single vent system have more than doubled since 2018. What was once a steady outflow around 1,500 tons per day now surges past 4,000 tons daily. These aren't abstract statistics. Each spike in temperature and gas output brings tangible consequences: scorched earth, withered vegetation, and a pungent sulfur odor that clings to the air for blocks around. Ground teams from Italy's National Geophysical Institute have logged field temperatures near vent-adjacent walls, exceeding 50 degrees Celsius. In some abandoned buildings just dozens of meters from the Picciarelli vent, the internal heat has become so extreme that floors have warped and thick mineral crusts have formed along the baseboards. The pace of change is relentless. Stepwise surges in vent activity have aligned perfectly with periods of ground uplift and earthquake swarms, each episode pushing the system further from what residents once considered normal. Inside a deserted apartment block near the Picciarelli fumarole, the walls and floors have transformed into something otherworldly. Every surface is coated in a thick, crusty layer of yellow and white minerals, sulfur, silica, and iron compounds fused by volcanic heat. The original paint and concrete are barely visible beneath the deposits. In some rooms, the mineral buildup is so dense it blurs the corners where walls meet floors, forming a hardened shell that cracks underfoot. The air hangs heavy with the sharp tang of sulfur and acid, a constant reminder this isn't ordinary decay, this is volcanic invasion. Municipal records show that as recently as 2016, families still lived here. Complaints began with strange warmth in the floors, then the appearance of salty streaks along baseboards. By 2018, thermal cameras recorded floor temperatures near 50 degrees Celsius. Residents reported dizziness and burning sensations on their feet. Civil protection teams measured carbon dioxide levels in ground floor rooms at 9,000 parts per million, far above safe limits. Soon after, the building was declared uninhabitable. On Via Antiniana, the Mascolo family faces a reality that statistics cannot capture. Their apartment, just a short walk from the Picciarelli fumaroles, has become a daily endurance test. At night, they open windows to vent acidic air, then check walls for blistered paint or fresh mineral streaks. The youngest child sleeps with a fan pointed at his bed because the outer wall radiates so much heat the plaster feels like a stovetop. If you put your hand on the wall, it isn't warm, it's terribly hot. Mrs. Mascolo says, her voice tight with worry. Each morning, the family inspects the living room for new damage. Some days, the mineral ooze has crept another inch up from the floorboards, leaving a yellow crust that flakes onto the tiles. The air smells sharp and metallic, especially after rain when gases push harder through cracks. On bad nights, the family moves mattresses to the hallway, as far as possible from exterior walls. Financial strain compounds the physical discomfort. Last winter alone, repairs consumed more than 6,000 euros, money spent on heat-resistant paint, makeshift ventilation, and repeated sealing of fissures that always reopen. Insurance companies refuse coverage, citing volcanic exclusion clauses. Selling isn't an option. Property values have plummeted, and few buyers will risk a home in the fumarole's shadow. Civil protection officials now face a crisis outpacing their ability to respond. The network of seismic and gas sensors meant to track Campi Flegrei's unrest has developed dangerous blind spots. In early 2024, several monitoring stations around the Solfatara crater went offline for weeks. Technicians blamed geothermal damage and budget shortfalls, but the result was the same: critical data gaps during periods of rapid change. While sensors struggled, the ground delivered unmistakable warnings. On October 12, 2024, a swarm of shallow earthquakes rattled Pozzuoli, cracking open the main artery of Via Napoli. Shops and schools shut down. Emergency crews cordoned off leaking gas zones and set up temporary shelters. Yet every time workers patched the road, new steaming vents burst through the asphalt by morning. The pattern is relentless. Across the caldera, a game of volcanic whack-a-mole plays out. Fixes vanish overnight. Vents reappear wherever they please. City budgets are drained, repairs are temporary, and officials quietly admit, we can't stop it, just manage it. The volcano's acceleration is now measured not just in data, but in broken streets and sleepless nights. Over 500,000 people live directly atop this supervolcano. Scientific monitoring has confirmed sharp rises in vent temperatures and gas emissions, with mineral deposits now encasing walls and floors in buildings near Solfatara and Paisiarelli. New studies reveal magma is far closer to the surface than once believed, challenging earlier hazard models. Despite these advances, scientists still cannot predict if or when a major eruption might occur. The accelerating pattern of earthquakes and the unstoppable invasion of volcanic materials into homes are documented facts. What remains unknown is the timeline and ultimate extent of this crisis. The evidence is clear. Campi Flegrei is not dormant, and the risks are immediate and real.